Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's the Jade Gemini. Hey, tonight I'm super excited to be back in front of the camera. Been a little while since I've gotten in the seat, so might be a little bit rusty. It just happens, with anything. This being a passion project and me trying to, get to 1,000 by the end of the year. Sometimes you have highs where you have motivation to bang a couple out, and then sometimes things come up or maybe you just don't have that motivation. So I'm really glad to get back in the seat and get into the grind of things. And tonight, what a great knife to go ahead and do it on. So today we're actually going to end up talking about a full comprehensive review on this little tiny guy right here, the Baby Banter. Before we get into the details of the knife and everything like that, let's just get some of the obvious things out of the way. We'll go over size, we'll go over hardware, and kind of go from there. So first, size comparison against some knives that are just standards of the community. We have the QSP Penguin, and also another value banger that I've already ended up going ahead and reviewing with its nicer premium titanium lock bar cousin or brother, and we have the iconic Para 3. Another knife that is a little bit of a bigger knife that I have around, at least for now, is the infamous 940. Try to maybe line them up at the pivots too, and then maybe line them up at the edge. So this is about the size of a, Kryptonian pair of PM2. This is a Para 3, so it's hopefully the size of a Para 3, right? And then there's this. Next thing we're actually going to do is get the thickness of the way. Get this guy out. So, looking at the size of the Para 3, I feel like that's a decent knife that has a standard size that a lot of people know. So, as you can see, we're coming in quite a bit. Light is not as, turn it up a little. There we go. So as you can see, the size is definitely thinner than the Para 3, and the Para 3 is, I would say, like a great size, right? It's not thin, but it's not thick, so this definitely ends up hiding in your pocket a lot more. And another thing I just want to get out of the way, maybe thickness of the blade stock. Never good at being able to read this stuff. So, looks like right at So it's actually pretty thin when compared to other knives. Yeah, as you can see, a little bit thinner than the QSP Penguin, and a little bit thinner than sort of your standard, working knives, like something like a, bug out, or as we just saw, the 940. And then the last thing that's really nice is that hardware all the way around is 8mm. So whether it's the pivot, the only thing is the pocket clip, which you only set once. There's ambidextrous, which we'll get into, but it's really nice. You can take down the knife with just an 8mm, so that's pretty cool. So with that stuff out of the way, let's jump right into the review. So today, since this is a full review, I'm going to end up talking about what I like, what I love, what I dislike, as well as some maybe general observations if there are any, and then if it applies, what is rubbish about your Civivi Baby Banter. So the first thing I like about this knife is its overall design. I talked about this when I did the overall first impressions, and if you don't know about this knife, it is actually made by, designed by Ben Peterson. He used to work for CRKT for years and has had a lot of knives in his hand working from there, and then had a heck of a lot of knives being a favorite off the Blade HQ YouTube channel. And that's where kind of knife banter started. Banter. And sort of the idea of banter back and forth, but there's also that play there. So he's had a lot of knives in his hand, and sort of the philosophy, if you've ever watched Ben, he would always talk about with his knives the fact that he likes knives to be in a certain size range for his type of EDC, have certain features, be able to kind of curl his finger on the end to cut pieces of paper and things like that for his kids, have a certain size that's easy to carry in his pocket. He would talk about, different, things with the knife. So coming into this knife, it has that philosophy of being a sort of perfect utilitarian EDC. And he made the bigger wee Banter. So this Baby Banter is now the baby or smaller size than that. So the first thing that I really like is the fact that it's designed by somebody here in the knife community, and we'll kind of get into why that's a good thing a little later on in the video. Another thing that I like is the fact that you have Civivi's quality here. And actually I was going to talk about that. There are certain Civivi models that just feel like cookie cutter. Like they're great designs, right? But it's kind of like use the same hardware, the same standoffs, the same pivot collar, the same pocket clip, and you kind of just drag and drop in a CAD design different ergonomic handle shapes. They're these shadow boxed, G10 or micarta that's slab sided and has this aggressive, sort of rounding on the edges so they're not sharp, and just very simple liners that are bead blasted. I mean, we've all seen them. So it kind of becomes the fact that like this Civivi and that Civivi and this Civivi and that one, they all just sort of kind of mesh together, and they sort of have the same feeling action, even though one maybe opens up with a front flipper and one of them is a flipper and one's a thumb stud, right? But there are designer Civivis or that are more like a Wii Lite, or in this case, like just straight up a Wii, right? This is a Civivi, but the quality is here. When you are talking about it, you have that Civivi action you're known for. So the action is good. It's fun to fidget. Jeez Louise, this knife, I just sit in the car and bang, 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 like the fastest possible. It's so fun. There's different ways to do it. And it's even fun to slow open and just do like that. So you're getting, great blade centering. You're getting no blade play, no lockup. In any direction. Lockup is good in the blade itself. Sharpening is really good as well. When you look at the grinds, the finish is actually nice. It's not like a painted on finish. This actually feels like some sort of DLC or something like that is a little bit more high end. So that's the first thing. You're getting that Civivi, quality. The next thing I like is out of the box, this knife is extremely sharp, which is silly to say, but there are some knives that are not. And even crazy enough, if you look at the edge on this knife, it almost seems like it has been polished, like from a strop or from lots of different microns, to have almost like a semi-polished working edge, where it's almost like semi-mirrored. When you compare this to some other knives that come out of the factory, and again, I'm not trying to say that this is less than this, but we're just, comparing. There are some knives that you can see the grind mark in the blade steel itself, where they've taken it to the belt. This is, of course, a insane knife. Maybe something a little bit more production like this 940. You can really see there's the grain structure there. And I'm sure it's sharp. Benchmade does a pretty good job at that stuff. But it feels like there's a little extra care taken with this Civivi, and it was just insane outside of the box, and it has that sharpness. The next thing is there is a pretty decent thinness behind the edge. There's been a really intelligent way that this has been designed. Down here, there's a little bit more blade surface area, and then as the belly comes up, there's less. What that does is this actually creates, once you pierce into something and cut, a slicey bottom here, but then when it comes up towards the tip, there's less blade material, so it widens out a little bit, and this actually creates a robust tip, but a thin slicer. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So again, just kind of getting back to that, there's definitely some more thought and knowledge behind this knife than the standard knife. Also with this knife is the fact that there is a lot going in under the surface. Again, this isn't your standard Civivi. This is more like a Wii. This knife feels more solid than some knives that are considered to be hard use. I have ZTs that flex more than this, no joke. One reason behind that is if you actually look inside of the knife, they've done a really interesting thing here. Let me try and zoom in again. So on the non-show side, the pocket clip side from the factory, there's a full liner that goes throughout the knife, so that's easy enough. But what's interesting is on this side, there is not. It's just G10 until you get back to these standoffs. There's actually, kind of hard to see. Sorry, I'm trying the best I can. Anyways, there is actually these coin liners, is what I would call them, that just triangulates here and here on this side, not in here, and then also another coin liner that goes around the stop pin, so it hits the structural part of the knife and around the pivot. So that means the bearings are going on direct metal on both sides, but as you can see, you only have one liner that's exposed. The other one is completely nested and it has the coin liner, while this side is completely nested except this exposed. I mean, to me, that's just showing extra effort, where you could just make this another shadow box of EV, or you could make it where, you just put like a metal diskette, a bearing, a surface, and then this whole thing be G10. But since they didn't do that, it is just a rock solid knife, and this is a worker, 100%. So that's what I really like about this knife, is the fact that you get the Civivi quality. It has a great action that is so fun to fidget. You have a lot of great little touches. You have a great sharp out of the box edge that's willing to work. And the fact that this is also Nitro V steel, which is a great stainless steel, has a great balance of toughness, corrosion resistance, ease of sharpening, and edge retention. And it's not just the same D2 that we've always seen. So this is what all makes it, good. What I love about this knife goes back to Ben himself and being a lot of knives, so many knives through his hand. He designed I feel like every single little part of this with a thought in mind. And again, kind of like the sharpening, you would think, well, that's every knife, right? But there are a lot of knives that come out that are designed first, and then sort of it's almost like the human hand was thought about second. So this knife is an example that I've got here. This is the Concept EDC tack. This knife looks cool, but until you put it in your hand, you have this weird double choil that's big enough for one finger, but not enough room for two. So you're either like off the back as almost like a two-finger knife, or you are shoving your two fingers up here. It's just, awkward. Or, you have this hump where your hand usually wants to go. I mean, you get it, right? Like, this knife is designed first and then thought about, like, is the actual using experience. Not the case here, right? Let's just move on. So there's all these little details. One, the jumping is the most perfect jumping I've ever felt. It locks in with no touching at all, but it's not sharp. in the slightest, but it is the most dig-in jimping I've ever felt, and I just love that. Also, this choil. The fact is with this choil that it is not only jimped, but as you can see, it's also contoured. They've beveled the edge on the bottom side of this. So when you're wrapping your finger around, there is no hot spots. Another thing, this knife is actually pretty great for lefties. They've not only made this little traction part, but because they have this liner that cuts down, this scale actually cuts down more than this side. What that makes happen is that it is almost like a titanium frame lock, very easy to just disengage that knife. So you can easily do like that. It bounces off either your fingernail, or even if you push up off your finger safely, and then you just easily shut it. So it is such an easy knife to use, even though it's small. Another thing, when I first got this knife, I thought, well, you know, they could have just done away with the choil and basically made a smaller version of the regular Banter, which has this sort of U shape that goes all the way up to the end. So if you grabbed it like this, then you'd have a bigger blade. But what that does is that only allows one grip, and it also wouldn't be great for people who have different size hands. I have medium to small hands, not big hands. So if you had bigger hands, you wouldn't be able to use this. With this, it is that sort of minimum size and pocket, but maximum usability once open. So when you grab this, you are not like feeling at any point like this is a toy knife. This feels like a real working tool, and that's why it's either a $400 plus Hinder or the Baby Banter. That's the only two things I've been carrying for the last like month to 2 months, because this knife just begs. It has a soul, which a lot of Chinese knives, for whatever reason, they have an interest for about a week or two, and then they're kind of like, it's just another Civivi with a shadow blocks, blah, 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 blah. This keeps coming back, keeps wanting to be used, carried, fidget, everything. Also, because of this design, to kind of come back to this, it also makes it really easy for a lefty, where if you push your finger down like this, it closes right there, safely not touching, and you can just wiggle it down. Or if you do it like this, because there is that ridge, you just sweep in the side, and again, you can easily close it. So this is actually a knife that is more friendly to lefty than definitely a lot of liner locks and even some frame locks that I know of. You also have the deep recessed pocket clip where the screws are completely flush, so that's great, and it's really just simple and easy. It looks like a pin in your pocket, completely flush. Also has these big thumb studs that are very easy to actuate. So if you slow roll it, and again, that's sort of proof of concept to be an everyday knife. You open this up in a Starbucks, something like that, or you know, in an office, people aren't going to look twice at this little sort of Lego looking knife. You know, and you could just as easy, you know, pop it open. You can finger flick it. You can do your pointer finger push out like Nick Shabazz always does, right? Those sort of things. So it's a perfect mixture of utilitarian tool and also fun, usable, a benefit to have in your collection and keep in your collection, right? As your small knife, because this is a small knife that feels like a big one. So, I mean, just a perfect design of like all these little things. There's no hot spots anywhere. And even one thing, I even thought at first, hey, this would be so cool. Why didn't Ben make this a front flipper? Until you grab this and you realize that you're grabbing the knife like this and opening it. If there was a front flipper, he even thought of this. He's rounded this off so it just doesn't even touch when you're opening it. Or if you close it and you're full handling the knife, it falls shut and you can shake it loose. If there was a front flipper there, or that wasn't rounded off, it would get pinched every single time. So it's like, this guy has used so many knives. He has thought of every single thing. He is coming from it from a like in the hand, Spyderco-ish, like designed in the hand first, in the dark, and then what else the rest of the knife comes out to is what you have, right? And for that, I love that. I love the engineering, the way that it's been structured, the way it's more solid than most knives. It's fun. If you can't tell, I'm a freak about this knife, right? For good reason. That leaves me to what I dislike about this knife. Really nothing. Really nothing. The only thing is that when they sharpen it, they nick these sides. That's it. Also, an observation, I think it's cool, but maybe not for some people, is that these thumb studs are big enough that you can wave this open like an Emerson. You pull it out of your pocket and twist. Those big nubs, thumb openers, will catch your pocket and it will wave it. I did it like 7 times in a row to test that it wasn't a fluke. This is the only negative that I do see. Sometimes if you're putting this in, especially if you have pockets like mine that are ripped up and have strings and stuff from the pocket clip going in and out, it will catch and you have to kind of do like back and forth like that because they are such big thumb studs. But I'd rather have big thumb studs that you can use instead of like this knife where you're like doing like that and then you really gotta like mindfully get in there before opening. This, you just touch them and they open up, right? It has that use first. So that basically leads me to the end, right? My sort of idea behind this knife is this a toy? Absolutely not. This is a full-on knife, and this is a knife, like I said, that has weight and value and a soul. And to think that this knife is under $60, I will easily all day say that this should be small knife of the year, right? And I will easily all day say that this is the most recommendable knife I would get anybody who's a non-knife person or a knife person as a gift. It's simple, it's easy to use, it's easy to understand, it's fun, it's cool. It comes with a sticker, right? That is of the Baby Banter. You're supporting someone actually in the community that you know and probably love, right? Love, any of those older episodes that were on there with Justin and him. And I can't have enough praise about it, right? It could be a little thinner to slice, but it's a tool where it's robust and it's also, decent at cutting, right? And, again, if they make a jade, oh my God, if they make a jade version with M390, ding, ding, dunzo, right? Doesn't matter what it costs, I'd have to get that. But, yeah, not to draw this out any longer, but this knife's great, and I recommend it tenfold, and I just love it, right? I wish there were more knives like this, right? That were not so expensive, but were really had thought behind it, and because that they offered value. Of course, I appreciate you hanging in there. I know this is probably a little long-winded because it's my first video back for a little bit of time. If you did like it, I would super like it if you leave a like, and I love seeing comments below. Also, if you like content like this, I would love it if you did subscribe, as I'm trying to reach 1,000 by December 31st, 2021. Hit that big milestone. Most importantly, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch this video, as there are so many amazing other content creators that you could be watching on your screen and listening to right now rambling on about some knife on their table. Most importantly, I hope everybody stays safe, everything going on, and have a great rest of your day and weekend coming up. Everybody take care. Peace.